So, I just want to put out a little disclaimer here that in this video I'm going to show about my dream that I had. Um, I cry in it. I like ugly cry in it. And so I'm just letting you know that it's probably a little cringe, but I want to put it out there because I feel like the topics are kind of important. And secondly, I wanted to let you guys know that there's going to be another edit at the end of the video where I talk about what the concepts of the dream to me were a little bit more in detail after a couple days of thought on on it. So, um, stick around to the end of the video if you can manage, because there's a couple things at the end that I want to say as well. Okay. Hi. My name is Kelsey, and I just wanted to share a dream that I had. Um, I don't do this kind of stuff very often, don't make videos, but I did plan on making a video about my testimony because I've been watching a lot of those on YouTube lately, and like my testimony for coming to know Christ. And that stuff I think is really touching, and so I was going to make a video. I still am going to make a video and post it to my YouTube to talk about my story of finding Jesus. But this is kind of a related topic that I wanted to talk about. Well, it was a dream, and I had it this morning, and I don't in any way consider myself to be like, a prophetic dreamer or anything like that. I was just really tired last night, and I fell asleep early. Um, and I don't even think that I spent a lot of time in the Word or anything like that yesterday. I did spend some time in the Word. I'm currently in the Songs of Solomon right now in the Bible, and but I didn't think that that had any effect in what I was watching, I guess, in my dream. Um, but I did spend some time like talking in comments on YouTube yesterday, and it was about God, it was about the stuff that we're seeing these days, like with pride and the gay and trans agenda and stuff like that, and it's just getting crazier and more out in your face. And so I did comment on a couple of videos yesterday, like someone replied to a Tim Pool video saying that it's okay to think pride is a sin, and so that was a comment that I commented back on, and I was like, yeah, it is a sin. It definitely is a sin. And not that I have been like my whole life wrapped up in, in this stuff and in Christ, but now I totally understand that. And so I replied to that saying basically like, yeah, it is a sin, and I tend to think that the Bible predicted that this kind of pride was going to fall under the same category as the pride that is considered a sin, like the category of pride being connected with gay, and so I that was something that I commented on that video. I was like, I definitely think that, you know, it was thought about to be put under that category too, and that's why it's claimed pride, like a part of it at least, is claimed in totality the category of pride, because we're seeing this now where everybody is getting really prideful and basically worshiping themselves for whatever they think and they believe in that they're doing and they think is correct, and it's just totally falling on themselves. But anyways, I didn't like there were just a couple things that I was commenting on that had to do with God. But it wasn't like a big God-filled day. I was doing my normal stuff. And anyways, I probably had this dream like early in the morning, because it was right before I woke up. It was right before 6:30, and it really like I just want to talk about it because it shook me. I At the end of the dream, I was crying. Like I fell to the floor crying about the stuff, and it wasn't like it was super um intense dream or anything, but it shook me and it made me feel like um you know the concepts in it were very real, and which I do think that they are. um and I woke up not crying, but I did wake up and I felt my eyes, and my eyes were watering. They had little beads of water in the corner of my eyes and stuff. And so I'll just get right into describing the dream. Um, it was it was interesting because I it was me and my husband, Josh, and we were like in a shop or something like that. And the shop was I don't know if it was like a used shop or a secondhand shop or maybe an antique shop or something like this, but it had some fancy like rocks and jewelry, and but it wasn't like a new age shop. It didn't feel like that. And I had my friend there. Her name was Mary, and she was only in the beginning part of the dream. And I remember looking at these earrings, and I don't know how much this has to do with this dream, but I was just looking around in the shop with my husband and Mary, and I was kind of showing Mary like, "Oh, this is cute, and this is, this other thing is pretty," and yada yada. And then I've ran across these earrings that were like geode type earrings. They were triangular, like downward, you know, like this. And so they had a little geode in it, and it was like crystallized, and it was polished down on the sides and on the inside, and it was like carved, and there was a carving in it that had letters, and it said like "love your family" or "I love my family" or something like that. Um, and it just really touched me, and I was like, "Oh, I love that. That's really sweet." And I remember looking at the price, and the price was like originally said 2050 or something, and but it was like half off, and so the real price was 1050 for these earrings that were quite large that said, "love your family," or "love my family," or something like that. And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, these are so cute," and I showed them to Mary, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I love those." And I don't even think that I bought them in the dream or anything like that. I think I set them back down, and me and Josh walked out of the store, and so did Mary. But Mary like ended up going somewhere else, or she wasn't a part of the dream anymore at this point. But once we stepped outside, it was a big parking lot, and the parking lot, it was dark outside, or it was getting dark. It was like dusk and just starting to get dark. And the parking lot was full of people. Everybody was walking, and they were going somewhere. They were all walking somewhere, and it looked like they were all walking in one single direction. But at that time, I didn't know what was going on, and throughout the dream, I didn't know what was going on with that. But so they were all walking kind of to the right. They continued to walk to the right, and none of them paid attention to me or Josh. It was like we weren't there, or they weren't there, or they weren't conscious, or something like that. And what happened was at that point, I was like, okay, this is weird. They look odd or whatever. And I look up and something catches my eye in the right hand side or in the left hand side of the sky. And I look up and I see lights. Like, yeah, like UFO lights, you know? And I don't like I've had alien dreams before, you know, and I have my own ideas about what aliens are, you know, and what they are in in comparison to demons, and I think they're similar. I think they might be like the same thing or similar beings or in the same family. You know, they talk about Nephilim or whatever, um, being being the parents of demons or something, you know. And so I think that's very connected. And if it's not in reality, then I think that's what my mind sets it up as, you know. And so there were these lights in the sky, like in circles. There was like little tiny circular lights set up in circles, like three sets of them or four sets of them, and it was the lights were getting brighter. And one of them was coming down, like crashing to the ground. And then when I was like, that's weird. You know, I wasn't scared. I didn't get this scared feeling, but I was just like, that's odd, you know? That's weird to see in the sky. That's not normal, you know? And then my gaze shifted back to all the people walking in front of me and around me, and they were all going in the same direction. Um, and my husband was still right near me, but he was like never in my line of sight. He was always behind me or right next to me, you know, and I was just, this was just my vision, was just, you know, first person through my eyes. That's all I was seeing. And and these people were all just walking through the parking lot and away in the same direction, like not paying attention to anything or anybody. And it was like they didn't have, it was like they had a place to go, but they weren't going anywhere. Um, and I started seeing like these things floating up over their head. And I mean like coding type things. Like if you see, you know, the 0111 or zero, like coding things that are green, you know, in like the Matrix kind of like that, except it was just a bunch of random numbers or random symbols and signs and whatever hovering over every one of these people's heads, as if they were being controlled or they were being manipulated or like reprogrammed, something. You know, I couldn't tell, but they were all floating over these people's heads, and I knew that I didn't have that going on. um and I wasn't going the same direction as all these other people, so I was just like, you know, what's happening? Why are all these people doing this, and what's floating over their heads? What's going on? You know, why are they being affected by this or whatever? I just remembered thinking like, okay, that's weird, that's strange. They look like they're being controlled or manipulated, or like the conservatives think of the NPCs, you know, um, which I am a conservative, but that's what they consider the NPCs, you know, being reprogrammed to the next thing or whatever. Or some people like liken it to the Mark of the Beast or something, maybe, I don't know. Or like they had Elon Musk's chip stuck in their heads at this point or something. I have no idea, but that's what I liken it to, and that's what it like seemed like in the dream, was they were just being controlled by something. And anyways, so we kept walking, and the next sign or the next scene in my dream was like me and my husband were walking past these bleachers, and they weren't like a big set of bleachers for a huge stadium or anything. It wasn't like a football stadium or something, but if you think more local and like your local high school football team's bleachers, stadium, you know, something like that. That's kind of what is. it felt like it was only so big. You could walk to either side and have it be the end of the bleachers, you know? And so this was the next scene was me and my husband, and I felt like it was in a car because I didn't feel like I was walking, but you know, I don't think I was. I didn't feel like there was anything around me. But so we came in from the left side of the bleachers, and these bleachers were all filled with people. They, for the most part, seemed normal. They all seemed like normal people. And then, but they weren't, you know, I mean, it seemed like they were interested in something, like they were paying attention to something. And I couldn't tell what. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what they were paying attention to. And like me and my husband are both Christians, and we walk across the bleachers, like in front of them, and there's these two people that stick out, really, you know, really stick out in the group. And one of them's a woman, and she's like on the third bleacher down from the bottom, essentially, or you know, about there. And then there was a man, and he was like a couple more bleachers up from her, but they were they were like acting like they were insane, like they were crazy. Where everybody else was acting normal, it was like by the sight of me and my husband, they got disgusted. Like I don't even think we talked to them. I don't think we said a word to them. Um, I have, you know, I have no idea. I don't think that we said anything to them. Like after I woke up, I was like, maybe we were talking about God, but I don't even think we were. I feel like these people just knew that we were Christians or that we believed in Jesus, you know, and but in the dream I didn't even get that feeling. I didn't know what was happening. They were screaming obscenities at me and my husband, and they were really focused on me and my husband. They weren't focused on anything else going on like the other people in the bleachers. They were just focused on what me and my husband were doing and where we were walking. Their eyes were fixed on us. And they were screaming obscenities at us and cussing and like just viciously like getting disgusted and visibly disgusted and saying terrible things, and like their whole bodies were just like wretched with how disgusted they were with me and my husband. And it was like it was crazy. I couldn't believe what was going on, and I nobody else noticed it. Nobody was saying anything about it, or if they did notice it, they thought it was normal. They felt it was normal. I didn't understand it in the dream, and I didn't link it to being anything supernatural either. It was really just crazy to me. And except at a certain point, they were they were screaming so much and getting so violent. They weren't moving from the bleachers, but they were getting their whole bodies were into it, so much so that they started like retching, like they started throwing up or spitting, like spitting up, um, as they were yelling and screaming at us so violently. And it was clear like that they were actually like vomiting or like spitting up like a whole bunch of spit and water and or whatever the case. And in the dream, I didn't know what was going on, but I was getting pissed off. I was getting really mad at these people. Couldn't understand it. I couldn't fathom why they were doing it. And I got so mad. I could feel my face get like flush red and getting embarrassed because they were focused on us and getting pissed off. And so I was just like, I had this feeling in the back of my head, like someone was telling me or someone was nudging me to, and you know, I've watched some videos about, you know, deliverance or about people, you know, kind of getting rid of things out of people like demons, you know, out of people or whatever. And some might say that I mean, I've been watching these lately, not specifically right around this time frame, but weeks ago or whatever. And some people say that, the demons aren't really in people as much as they say they are or think they are, or it's not as common as you think. And maybe it's not. Like I don't know, and I don't claim to know any of that. Um, but I just know what I felt in my dream, and I felt like somebody was telling me like to say something to them, was pushing me to respond in some way, just to respond. Like, and I felt like I should have said something like, whatever's going on with you, whatever's inside of you, guys, come out in Jesus' name, come out of there. That's what I felt like I needed to say to these people, and but I didn't because I was so angry. I was so like worked up that I didn't say that, and I didn't think that me saying that would help the situation. I didn't think that if they had something going on with them, that me saying that would help and get whatever out if they were really demon possessed or whatever. And I wasn't even sure if I was experiencing something supernatural in the dream at this point. I was just like, well, if this is happening, this is this is what I think I should say. But I was doubting myself in the dream, and I was very angry, and I gave in to my anger. And but there was something telling me that even though you're angry and you don't feel, sure of yourself, at least respond. At least respond to these people. And so I did, but I responded in like the worst way possible. Well, it wasn't the worst way possible, but it was pretty bad. Like, and some people would just laugh, but I was just like, whatever you have going on, and I said this like I was yelling at him, whatever you have going on, like, I hope you guys get delivered. I hope you get delivered. And then, and it came out in a yell, and then I said, bitch. I called her a bitch. I was like, I hope you get delivered, bitch. And I was so pissed off. And it came out in like a yell and my body, and so that was all I can get out of myself. And so I was so uncomfortable, and my husband was still next to me. I was so uncomfortable. I started walking away after that because I was like, ugh, whatever. And I was disgusted. And as I started walking away, I still like was looking at them, and both of them in the stands dropped to the ground. Dropped in the bleachers. And they started like convulsing. They started like being affected by what I said, even though it wasn't like the proper, like it wasn't good for me to probably say that to them. But I was being told to. I felt like I was being pushed to say something to them, whatever it was, whatever I could muster. I needed to respond to them. And so, anyways, I saw them fall to the ground and converse or convulse. I mean, um, and like the people in the bleachers then started to finally notice what was going on, and they didn't recognize me. They didn't say anything to me. They didn't know pay attention to anything I or my husband was doing. They were just trying to like aid the people that fell down in the bleachers and was dealing with something. They didn't know what was happening, and they just started like trying to help them up or whatever. And I'm walking off to the left side now of the bleachers from my vision with my husband, and as I'm like looking back at these people, I'm like, oh my gosh, like something happened just there. I said something to my husband. I was like, something happened. Like, whatever, if they were possessed or if something was in them, they they just got like, they just got into a fight with it essentially. Like it's coming out or whatever. And And I was like shocked. And anyway, so we were walking to the left side of the bleachers. I was astonished what was happening. I didn't feel good about it. I felt really like everything was that was going on around me was very evil. Um, and so, I walked to the left with my husband and we're going this other way. And then it's like everybody else in the stands or in the bleachers, in the small bleachers, opens back up and they're in my view again. And I can see them and I can see what they're doing. And, um, and I didn't recognize at the time what this group of people at the left side of the stand bleachers were doing, but they were doing something. And then I got to the end of the bleachers at the left with my husband, and I start to think, okay, well, this isn't the way that we need to go. I think we need to go this other way. I think we need to go that way towards the lady and the man and past them in the other direction. And so we get to the end of the stands as if we're walking left and away, and then that's when I have the thought is to turn back around at the end there. And so I turn back around with my husband and I see the group standing at the end right here. And someone is talking to them. Someone's preaching to them, it looks like. And they're like so into it. It's this group of like 10 people or something like that. And they're so into what this person is saying. I didn't hear what he was saying, but they were all like entranced with what this guy was saying, and they were holding up the like devil hand sign, as they were talking. I guess it's like this or whatever. I don't know. And they were talking to this group of people with every one of them doing that hand sign and like nodding, and like it was almost like as if they were chanting or something because they were all talking in unison and in response to this person. And I was like shocked to see that. Nobody else in the stands, again, noticed or cared what these people were doing. It was just me and my husband that saw them. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? Like, that's disgusting. What are they doing? And I just got a really creeped out vibe from it. And, anyways, I moved on from there and we were walking to the middle section of the bleachers again and out to the right side and towards the lady and the man that had been yelling at me and my husband. And I see the lady like picking herself back up and fixing her hair and fixing her clothes and picking up her stuff off the ground and whatever. And I wasn't looking at the man, but I think the man was doing like the same stuff. And she looked so confused, like she didn't know. I mean, I think she was aware of what happened, but I don't think that she was like totally conscious and of what happened. And she looked really confused and like disheveled, um, and embarrassed, maybe even. And so I see her getting up and putting herself back together, and I realize as I'm walking past, I'm kind of looking at her, and I realize that, I mean, not in real life, I haven't seen her in real life that I know of, but in my dream, I recognized her from church, and I was like talking to my husband. I was like, that lady is from church. She's from our church. And that happened to her. And I had this guilt, this amazing guilt for saying what I said to her. Normally I don't, in the past, I've always been like, I don't care what I say, or who I call bad names or who I cuss at, like, and I didn't care about cussing. My headphones just turned off. Anyways, and I didn't care about cussing, but for some reason when I said this to this lady, it really hurt me. And when I found out that it was somebody from my church in the dream, I was like, oh my gosh, like I did this to her, I said this to her. And I had this hate, in my heart, and now I just feel so bad because she didn't deserve that, and I know her, she's from church, and I see her, and I walk up to her, and so I'm concerned for her at that point, and I go, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" And I help her get her stuff and whatever, and she just looks at me and she says, "No, I'm not." And she goes, "I just need to go home and pray." So I just told her, I was like, "Okay, pray. Go pray." So she walks away from me and my husband, and me and my husband walk off, and we end up, the next scene is like we're not there anymore, and we went into a building or something, and we went into like, a family restroom or something like that, and or our bathroom or something. Maybe we came home. I'm not sure. And I just remember like being so upset with myself, and I fell to the floor in the bathroom. My husband was behind me, and I started crying. And my husband was like, "I saw that. I saw all that. Um, it was undeniable. That was crazy, and that was, intense." And I was like, "Yeah, it was." And I called her a bitch. It, it was crazy. It was intense, and I hated her for a second, and I called her a bitch, and I didn't even realize who she was, or, and I had the hate in my heart. I didn't say that part, but this part, but I had the hate in my heart instead of feeling sorry and wanting help, you know. And so in my dream I was crying, and that was when I woke up, was at the tail end of there while I was still crying. And then I told my husband about it as soon as I woke up. And it's not like it was a big, like, groundbreaking dream. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't super special, I don't think. But it was enough to make me think about things, in the way that I should probably think about these people who I might not know, but I feel like hate. And, you shouldn't hate people, but like really dislike, I guess. But it made me feel like one, for one, made me feel like I shouldn't handle it as a person that I don't know. I should handle it as if I know this person and I want to help, you know? And hmm, because all these things that are happening right now, like, to me they're all strangers, of course, but we should be really worried for their souls. And the biggest thing that I felt from that dream was that if me and my friend and my husband were the only ones that were like coherent in the dream, If that's any indication of anything, not many of us are gonna be saved, you know? Not many of us are going. I mean, and so we do have to help who we can. I mean, we're saved, because we have faith in Jesus Christ and that He's our Lord and Savior. Um, but I think even we can get caught up in this evil, so we have to be careful, and we have to look at others with kindness or try to. And the other thing that I grabbed from that dream was that even though I felt like what I said was the wrong thing to say to this lady, God still used it to help her. He still used it to take whatever evil was in her and take it out, you know? Even though I said what I said, even though I called her a bitch, um, and even though I ended up knowing her, and even though I felt like there was nothing I could do to help, or there was nothing I could do to change the situation, even though I said the wrong thing, um, God still took that opportunity to show me in the dream what He could do. And how, it doesn't have to be perfect uh, for some miracle to happen, and I mean, you could take that however you want for whatever it is, but that's the feelings that I got from it. Um, so yeah, if I don't know why I felt like I needed to share it with people, but I felt like I did. So to whoever sees me talk about this, I hope it did something for you, or I hope you enjoyed listening, I guess, and seeing me bawl like a baby. I don't know. Um, yeah, thanks. All right. Well, that was it. And it's pretty cringe, but I just wanted to take a few minutes here at the end to talk about the other things that I got from this. So, one of the things that I got from it was the the evil that's out here is becoming so much more prevalent and out in our faces, and it's getting worse in our daily lives as we, as a nation, start to reject Christ, because that's happening more and more in our schools and just in the American culture. More and more people, especially coming from the left, are just filled with hate, and that's what they see, us Christians as being, especially too, is that we're hateful or we're bigoted or we're racist or whatever the case. Um, but in actuality, it's just become an excuse to push further away from the truth and further away from Christ, um, on their end. So I just wanted to touch again on that subject, that it's important for us to know that as Christians, even though I'm not I'm like a Christian baby, like I'm in the beginning of the walk. I just started being a Christian, a couple years ago. But it's important to know that the evil is out there and it can affect us, and it will affect us. And it's probably most likely going to be subtly, but in my dream, the Christian that I knew that was from church was affected, and she was affected greatly. Like, whatever was going on, if she was demon possessed or just had this, spirit of evil beside her or with her or whatever the case, she was greatly affected by the evil. And it could have been a slow burn. It could have happened over a long period of time. Whereas I also exhibited it in the dream, which came out as um, a really poor response as a Christian back to her. And that was just another example of the the evil that we could still experience. Not it wasn't like super evil, coming from me, but it was in the way like a subtle something subtly affecting my mindset or the way that I respond or just being affected by the environment, for so long or there's a bunch of things and a bunch of ways that the evil can affect people and it's not just non-Christians that can be affected by this, and that was one of the important takeaways for me. And one of the other takeaways for me um is the feeling of not being able in the dream. I had the feeling of not being able to live up to live up to Jesus, live up to talking about Jesus or thinking that I could make a change or a difference in someone's life. And that's ultimately what it came down to in the dream. I felt like I wasn't worthy. And that's a concept that's, talked about and brought up in the Bible. Um, Often is, there's a big sense of unworthiness among the people that worship and believe in Jesus, um and that's exactly what I felt. I felt like I was unworthy or that I wouldn't make a difference or that I can't make a difference or all those things. And what am I to say something and have it really help? And you know, the fact of the matter is that Jesus will take anything that he can and use it. Uh, and that's what I grasped from that part of the dream was that even if you feel unworthy or like you can't make the difference, or you don't know exactly what to say, or maybe you're talking selfishly at the same time that you're trying to, you know, talk about Jesus or whatever. We're imperfect beings, and the sense that I got there was to whatever you think and feel about those things, the important thing is to just talk about it. The important thing is to try to communicate what you think and feel, especially when it comes to talking about Jesus or talking about the Bible, um, because you never know what God will still use and still show his power. And I'm not saying that I'm anybody special. I'm not saying that I have the power to do those things or that I'm gonna go and deliver people from all these evil entities and evil possessions because, you know, I'm not saying that I have the power or that I could go and do those things even with the help of God. What I'm saying is that we have to look at things more as the discipleship when we're following Jesus. We have kind of a responsibility, and you can't really be worried about those things all the time. You can't be worried that you'll look stupid or feel embarrassed, or if you're going to feel embarrassed, like what better to feel embarrassed about than for the glory of God? And so why not just do it? What bad can come from it, you know? I mean, and if there is bad that comes from it, then at least you're doing what you think is right and glorifying God by trying to talk about him and, his word. Um, so yeah, that was the other thing that I got from it was like, even though you can be embarrassed or think that you're not going to make a difference or that you're not going to affect somebody or touch somebody's heart or plant a seed or whatever, it still could happen and God could still use it. And it doesn't take a whole lot um for him to still make a miracle out of it, so to speak. um so those were my 2 cents looking back and having a couple days to think about it. um and I also think that as Christians, and from that dream, I think we kind of have to have a sense of urgency too, with being able to have a conversation and talk about these things whenever the opportunity arises. Well, the feeling that I got from that dream was my course of correction after this um, is to just not be so worried about being embarrassed and um, whether or not I make a difference or if the people are going to get annoyed with me or whatever, that I should just take every opportunity to talk about it that I could, or to show it, show by example. Like it's also talked about in the Bible, and just, show the love and the caring and what work God has done in your life, um, and let other people see that. So, it doesn't always have to be you going out and preaching the word to somebody, but also just, being able to glorify him in your actions and, in the way that you raise your family or, yeah. So, anyways, that was it. Thank you.